Recently, I upgraded my office PC and I took the computer that was inside of that case out, which means I had a case just looking at me menacingly.
Put something inside of me.
That's what she said.
So I had to obey. Plus, it's kind of OCD just having a computer case around with literally nothing in it, just kind of sitting there doing nothing. So I figured I would put together kind of a budget-ish 1080p gaming machine for my bedroom. Now, a couple of things here. Number one, this computer is almost never going to get used because I'm not in my bedroom for any other thing than to go to sleep. So I might play a game or two right before I go to sleep. So I don't want to spend too much money on it. And number two, there really is no such thing as budget right now. While some computer parts are not that expensive, we just know that the GPUs are the things that just take these things over the top.
The more you buy, the more you save. That's right. The more you buy, the more you save.
And that was actually the thing that took me the most amount of time to pick out. So when I was just farting around on the internet, Newegg had a really good deal for what was the vast majority of the parts that I needed to build the computer for only $350. Let me show you what those parts were. So they actually had a really good deal with a motherboard, a processor, and RAM, which sounds great at first until you realize they sent me two different types of RAM. I don't understand this promo. I would have liked to have an SSD with it, but this is what I got. First up is the Gigabyte B850M. I actually like this motherboard. It's pretty easy to work on, and I like Gigabyte products. So I wasn't really upset about getting this as part of a bundle deal. But again, let me show you some of the things that it came with. It kind of boggled my mind a little bit. Ryzen 5 9600X, which is, of course, just kind of a baseline processor. It's not the best in the world, but for what I'm doing, again, 1080p 60, I'm connecting this to a television that's like 12 years old. It's probably actually older than that. So I don't need anything that's super high resolution or anything like that. I'm keeping it 1080p locked in. This is going to do just fine. And keeping that cool, I'm using the Thermalright Assassin X 120 digital. I've never used this cooler before, but I do like that it shows the temperature on the top of the heatsink. And I'm a sucker for that sort of thing. Plus, this computer is going to be off in a corner, and for me to see that the temperatures are going to be okay, I want to be able to look at it without bringing up software and just be able to take a look at it. So I'm excited to use this for the first time. And of course, they shipped 16 gigs of DDR5 from T-Force, which I was excited about that, except that wasn't the only RAM that was part of this package. They also sent 32 gigs of Ripjaw DDR5 RAM. Wait, you sent me 16 gigs of one company and 32 gigs of another company? Are you just trying to make me do another build after this? Because that's probably what's going to happen. So I paired that with 1 terabyte of Clev, K-L-E-V-V, Clev, is that how you say it? I don't know. 1 terabyte of their SSD storage. I actually used their RAM in my gaming PC and I've been pretty happy with it. This wasn't that expensive. It was like 56 bucks. So yeah, I'm gonna go for that. And we're gonna throw all this thing together, except I need a GPU. I'm also using a 1,000-watt power supply that I have left over from a previous build. I know that's super overkill, and maybe at some point I'll move that to another computer, but for now, it just gets a bunch of power thrown at it, because why not? So the biggest thing was finding a video card, and this was a struggle for me. When I actually came up with the idea to do this PC, one of the things that was happening is the 9060 XT had just been announced, and the 5060 from NVIDIA had just been announced, or I should say released at that point. The controversy between 8 gigabytes, you don't have to even go there with me. I was never looking at an 8 gigabyte video card. I'm not gonna jump into that whole pool of why would I buy an 8 gigabyte card? I don't want it, just give me 16 gig. I'm not bothering with it. So that meant me looking online for secondhand because, quite frankly, the prices that they were charging for any of the 16 gig cards was kind of outrageous. And while the AMD cards briefly shipped at their MSRP, that quickly went away. So I decided to look on Facebook Marketplace for something, and I almost got a 3080 because the performance is good. It's got more than 8 gigs of VRAM, and I thought it would be great for a 1080p machine. But the thing is, it only actually has 10 gigabytes. Most of the models out there only had 10. I didn't realize that at the time until I started really looking into it. So even though it would be better than 8, it's only barely so. And more importantly, I want this thing to rock at 1080p 60 for a very long time. So I wanted the performance of a 3080, but something with more VRAM. And I got lucky. During this entire search, when I was trying to figure out if I was gonna go AMD or NVIDIA, I tripped across a pretty good deal. Or at least, I guess a good deal. I got a 16 gig 5060 Ti for $400 because it's open box. Open box means it was returned by someone, but this was only a couple days after the thing came out. So my guess is that it's in perfect condition. I can't wait to put it in the machine. Let's get some build going. The motherboard itself, really nice and spacious. And this case, which I've had for quite a while, since like 2019, really has a lot of space. I was really happy to work in it, super easy. The motherboard fit in perfectly, and this new heatsink and fan, really cool. I've never used the Ryzen 5 9600X before, but I've been kind of excited to see what it's all about. Pretty budget CPU, usually goes around $200 or so. So let's see how it's going to work for this build. And the Ripjaw 32 gig. Now remember, I got this for free in this bundle, so I didn't know what to expect here, but I just assumed it's going to be like most RAM. Ripjaw is pretty well known. I had to take the bracket off the motherboard to be able to put the new heatsink and fan on. Of course, if you've ever seen this before, you've seen the standoffs before. Super easy. And yet I still kind of messed it up. As you can see here, there's thermal paste already on the processors because I put these stands on backwards. So right now I'm putting them on the correct way. And then of course, putting the heatsink on top of that. Love this part, super simple, and Thermalright got it right. And of course the 1 terabyte SSD, super easy to put in, just clicks right in. And it didn't have a heatsink, but of course the motherboard came with one. And finally, let's put the fan on that heatsink and fan. This is super simple. I actually love these little retention clips that they use, and it's pretty standard fare at this point. And we're done. Let's put this thing in the case. Like I said, the case has plenty of space, so this was simple. No problems at all. Now let's talk a little bit about the GPU choice. Again, a 5060 Ti 16 gig, I got it for $400 open box. So while the price is good right now, relatively speaking, generally speaking, this is not really a budget build anymore because of that GPU. I acknowledge that. The $350 for a motherboard, processor, and RAM is pretty darn good. So I'm happy there. I immediately double that by putting a GPU in. And if you want any kind of GPU that's worth anything that's not on the secondhand market, this is kind of where we are. It's very frustrating. Just with those parts alone, we're almost at the $800 range when you include tax. Not exactly amazingly budget friendly because you still got to do the case and power supply and everything else. But I mean, I do want this thing to last for a very long time. I want to be able to put everything all the way up ultra settings at 1080p. I only need 60 frames a second. That television is so old, it only gets 60 frames. So here it was, I put everything together. I want to see if I can get a post on the first try. Here we go. Okay, here we go. I'm not gonna actually put the sides on, but we're gonna give this thing a test. As you can see, that's lighting up, which is good news. Let's see if it works. Ooh, snap. Hello? Let's see if we can get a post. Everything else is looking pretty good. But what the heck, man? Post, you son of a bitch. Look at this. Let's go. We got it. Next thing up is I wanted to put a bunch of games on so I could test it and give you guys a little bit of information about how this thing performs. And there's something that's really cool about Steam. Let me show you. Shout out to Steam for allowing you to install your games from other computers on your network. I'm hitting this across here at almost 2.4 gigabiggies a second. And it's really interesting to see how this works across the different computers. This is the client machine, the 1080p machine. You can see the SSD or the NVMe going hard. But let's look at the host machine. Gaming PC, the hosting PC. Yeah, there's a lot going on in the CPU. That's kind of crazy considering it's just sending stuff across the network. But man, 70% CPU usage to send some files. That's great. 2.4 gigabiggies. Let's get it. Okay, so I got everything on there. I got everything installed. And now let's fire it up in all its glory. One thing I really like about this thing is that heatsink and fan. You see here, it actually tells you the CPU and GPU temperature. Actually, it's customizable. You can put a whole bunch of stuff there. I really enjoy that aesthetic. I just wish that I didn't have a dark glass so you could see it easier. So now how does it game? Again, with this old television, which by the way, I had to update the firmware on. The firmware was from 2011. So the TV was older than that. In order for it to work properly, again, I don't have to hit anything very high. 60 frames a second is super easy at 1080p, and a 5060 Ti is going to do that all day long. But I cranked everything up, and here's just a couple of games, and I'll tell you why I chose these games, mainly because I'll be using them. Everything else I play are fighting games, which are 60 frames a second locked anyway, and they're all super easy to hit that Tekken 8, Marvel Superheroes collection, all that stuff. That hits 60 without any problems, ultra, all the things. But here's three that I wanted to pick out to show you how well this system actually performs. First up is Cyberpunk, 1080p, Psycho ray tracing, DLSS quality, and we're hitting great frame rates here. Normally I wouldn't use DLSS at all on a 1080p system, but it looks so good here that it didn't even matter. As you can tell, I was averaging over 70 frames a second, which is more than the refresh rate of my television, so I was super happy with this. Next up was Final Fantasy Rebirth, 1080p, DLAA, high settings. Amazing stuff. Over 100 frames a second. I couldn't be happier. And finally, NBA 2K25. You never see anyone show this, but it's a really great example of a game that stresses processor and GPU. And I want to show that because I picked the 9600X. So 1080p, DLAA, amazing frame rate. So ultimately, this thing is a beast at 1080p, 60, and above and beyond. And at 1440p, I even played around with it on my main television just to see what it would do. And as you can see, it looks great, even on a 77-inch screen at 1440p, or even, believe it or not, 1080p, it was fine. Tons of frames. That particular television, 120 hertz refresh rate, so it just looked so smooth. I really enjoyed it. I was surprised that it looked so good, considering that I wasn't running it at 4K, which is normally what I run games at on that television. So overall, I'm super happy. 1080p, 60 frames a second for any game that I want to at super high settings, and I can go above and beyond that, and I'll have it for a couple of years. That was the whole point of this. Have something that not only will give me high-end 1080p gaming today, but for the foreseeable future. I have so much headroom on these games that no matter what comes out over the next several years, I won't have to touch a thing. Having said that, I do have a good upgrade path even on this computer. The 9600X, while a great PC CPU for this exact purpose, is probably holding back frame rates in some of these games. Literally put an X3D processor in there and I got a free upgrade on frames. I wouldn't have to do anything else. But for what I'm using it for, it's actually perfect. But again, the problem with a build like this is even though I had some of the parts already, the case and the PSU, which, you know, saved me some money, the reality is it was kind of expensive because the GPU market is trash. It's just trash. Secondhand places are doing pretty good. You might find a good deal on eBay. I like the open box idea because my GPU was basically brand new. It looked absolutely sparkling perfect and it works great. And I was actually thinking someone might have swapped it for the 8 gig. I thought I was going to get ganked. It works great. So I think for anyone who's looking to upgrade, if you have like a Zen 4 system, and you don't have a lot of money, this is not a bad way to go. You might change out the GPU. Again, $400 is good for what I want it for, but maybe too much for what anyone who's looking to be budget-minded. But these little package deals that Newegg comes out with is pretty great. They even had a better one the week after. Motherboard, RAM, and storage, which would have been perfect for me, instead of having now a 16 gig packet of RAM just sitting on my desk not doing anything. I guess I'm going to have to use that in a future video. So make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have your own 1080p beast in 2025, why don't you leave me a comment below? Let me know what your build is, and let's talk about it. The 9600X was the one X factor in this that I wasn't really sure about, but I'm actually super happy with it. It's only 6 cores, 12 threads, but it's more than what I need for what I'm doing. If you have questions, leave me a comment below, and I'll see you in the next one.